The story begins. A boy suddenly realizes that he's each alone in the whole world. There's no bone on his lot or on the roads. He goes home and finds that the time has also stopped. He's shocked because of all these unknown effects, and suddenly an angel appears and tells him that Earth's time has stopped. The boy asks who she's and the angel responds, "Who do you suppose I'm?" When the boy says, "You're a home meddler," the angel is shocked and shows her body, saying she's easily an angel and her name is Lita. Lita tells him that she came then to tell him that the boy has been left before, and the boy suddenly remembers his trauma and how he has always been left before. All of his because of these studies he was depressed. The angel goes on to say that all humans except you were transferred to another dimension, and the boy asks why. The angel explains that the Earth will be going through a great cataclysm, which means that the Earth is leveling up to the coming stage, or in simpler terms, mana will be released on Earth. Also, an archaic record system will make contact with Earth and humans can get a sense of their power. It's called the status. The angel praises herself and says she is good at explaining. The angel further says once mana is released on Earth, monsters will appear, and the monster cannot be killed by simple ordnance and brands. So if we just leave humanity as there, they will be at threat of being annihilated by the monster. So God stopped time on Earth and transferred all humans to another world, so they could have time to train and acclimatize to mana. To be precise, their real bodies are kept in a safe place, and by creating incorporations they're transferred to another world. Cannot we kill monsters with ordnance and explosions? The boy asks, and the angel responds that a monster formed by high-ranking energy wouldn't indeed die to a nuclear bullet, which is why God arranged for all humanity to learn mana. The boy asks what the angel thinks about him, and the angel says, "I suppose there was a mistake. The portal connecting to other confines is formerly closed, and your stalwart skill that indeed God couldn't fade is amazing." The boy was veritably angry and said, "How does a stupid God live? Stupid live." And he also demanded to learn Nana. The angel says, "The merciful God took pity on you since you were left behind and decided to give you a perk. It'll be times until Makine comes back, so until also I'll take care of your affections and other effects." The angel suggests he train his body to prepare for the forthcoming great cataclysm. The angel says if you cannot use mana, you just need to be physically strong, and this is how the lonely life of the boy began. 5 times have passed since humans faded from Earth, and during all this time Yolan trained his body every day while other people were developing their mana. All he could do was increase his physical strength. The angel asks him, "Are you not wearied? You have been doing the exact same thing for the once 5 times." The angel notices that Julian has developed a lot of muscles and his strength has also bettered. Angel praises his tolerance and says, "You aren't an ordinary person. I formerly knew that. Since you avoided the eyes of God with your covert fashion." Dylan gets angry with this comment. Lita is the only person that Dylan has. She comes every week to meet him. All a villain's refections were prepared by Leta, and when it was time to eat, the table was automatically filled with food and the dishes were gutted automatically. Ulan wants to learn martial trades or how to use munitions. The angel Lita asks her, "How will you learn when there is nobody to teach you?" And Elen says, "I will learn from you too." Elen asks the angel why the internet servers haven't failed and are still operational, and the angel gives the same answer: time has stopped, which irritates Ellen. We see that Ellen is practicing martial arts on the ground, and Leta suggests he focus on the basics as he has 5 years to learn them after 4 years of constant training in martial arts. One day Leta asks Ellen if he wants to spar with her so he can improve faster. Ellen asks, "Are you telling me to hit you?" An angel confirms and says, "Don't worry, come at me." Ellen says, "Even if you say that you are an angel, of course I can hit you." Feel the power of 9 years of loneliness and resentment. Leta, a potential starborn for fighting in the heavens, knocks him out with a single punch. Leta says, "Don't worry and use me as your sparring partner," and the major bleeding comes free with it. Ellen tries to refuse, but Leta forces him. The years have passed now, and Ellen is preparing himself to meet with people after years, and the angel tells him that with your martial arts skill you can kill low-level monsters easily, and after you level up you can also use mana. So don't worry. Ellen asks if they will be able to meet again, and Leta says, "It depends on you." Ellen stood on the ground thinking that it was a shame to say goodbye to Leta, but that at least I could return to my normal life. But after a while no one appeared on Earth. Now Ellen is enraged and demands an explanation from Leta, and she says there was a mistake and the axis of time has been shifted. And Ellen complains and says, "Do I have to wait another or years?" "Okay, I will wait some more." However, years went by and no one returned. We see that Dylan is training in the cave, and Leta praises him, saying he's gotten a lot stronger than before. Ellen says that his years have passed. He stopped counting time and now he doesn't remember my mom's face. Leta Worsley asks Cylind, "You haven't fallen into despair, have you?" Ellen says he is bored with martial arts, and Leta responds, "But the great cataclysm could start at any moment. You can't neglect your martial arts." Ellen says, "I know, so I will keep training while I read books too." Leta felt relieved that he hadn't fallen into despair yet and says that's a good idea. After that, Ellen read books all day long, first modern novels, then business books, general knowledge, history, geography, physics, chemistry, and art, and he read all the books in the library. Ellen started to travel to other countries, starting with nearby China, followed by Russia, America, and so on. He learned several languages and read all the books in the world. Ellen asks what he should do now. Leta admires him and thinks that even after living alone for hundreds of years he still has hope, and she prays to God Dear Lord, please let the humans return before Alen reaches his limits. After reading every book in the world, Alen started learning butchery and blacksmithing, and he got the idea that if he killed every animal it wouldn't prevent the monsters from appearing. Letta says, just haunt monsters, which I allow you to do, or else the equilibrium will be destroyed, and she suddenly stopped talking because this is confidential information. Alen asks her why he stopped talking, and Lita tells him to pretend that he's never heard this before. Alen says, I should become a butcher in any case, and Lita thinks Silan is a fascinating person. It's been years since we were alone, which is a long time even for an angel. After years of practice, this time Milan hunted a sperm whale to check his maze in butchery. Lita warns him that sperm whales are endangered species and therefore prohibited from hunting, and Alen says to just let it go this time. Alen has now started to learn blacksmithing, and he thinks it's easy to read about the skills in a book, but in reality they aren't, and his hand slips and the sword he was working on breaks. Alen practiced for 5 years and was eventually able to make a shabby sword, which Lita takes from his hand and says, you can't even cut radish with this, so she keeps it as a commemorative item. Alen practiced and created all of the weapons available in this world, such as hammer, axes, and long swords. After hundreds of years of striking a hammer, Alen finally makes a perfect spear. Lita praises him and says his tenacity is truly amazing. This is the best steel weapon I have ever seen. But Lita tells Alen that after the introduction of mana, new materials will be born that are even stronger than steel. After mastering butchering and blacksmithing, Alen again started practicing martial arts. Lita thinks that Dylan is experiencing several generations of progress in a single body, but as thousands of years have passed, he will soon reach his limit. If he could experience something new, it would be nice, like having an opposite-sex relationship. Lita flusters because of these erotic thoughts, but she remembers that her mission is to help Alen, so if he wants that, then I have to help him. Alen asks Letta what she is doing there by herself. Suddenly Letta comes very close to Alen. With the sword she took from Milan begins to fly. Lita goes behind it to catch it, and Alen notices that his clothes are changing to what he wore on the day the earth stopped and everything began to return to normal. Lita also notices from the sky that the great cataclysm has arrived. Alan's body flies and moves in the direction of the college campus. Lita sees him in the sky and thinks, I couldn't even say a proper goodbye and hadn't even kissed him. Alen looks at Letta and thinks, I want to meet her again. She is an angel, a high-ranking being. If so, I will also become a high-ranking being. Everyone was transported back to their places on Earth, and now Ilhan can see that his status on Earth has also been upgraded. Ellen hears other people talking about how they returned after only years, and he thinks, I am the only one who was left behind for 1,000 years. People were complaining because their stats had been reverted to level 1. Notices that there are so many people besides him, but none of them react towards him. It's as if he's invisible to them. Alen notices his stealth skill, which is already at max level, and concludes that he is probably invisible to others. Because of it, Alen tries to turn off the skill but fails to do so, and Alen cries, thinking that he is fated to be alone. Alen goes back to his home, and on his way back he is happy to see busy streets. Again, as Villain enters his home, he hears his mother's voice, and all the memories he had forgotten return to him as he sees his mother's face, and he hugs her in joy. Alen sat at the table to eat food when his father said there was no news about Hija, and his mother also joined in the conversation about the other world, which Ellen couldn't understand. Ellen's mother inquires as to where he went in the other world, and Ellen considers concealing the fact that he was left alone in the world from his mother by claiming to be a place without a name. Ellen's father complains about how difficult it is to use mana, and Ellen's mother says she heard that one can earn a lot of money if they are good at using mana. Monster corpses are said to be worth a lot of money. Ellen tells his parents that he can't use mana at all, and his parents say that's why you should be focused on studying. Alen finds that the perfect spear he made is still here and thinks he can use it to fight monsters instead of looking for new weapons. Alen checks his weapon stats, but he has no idea if they are good or bad. He now searches the internet for information about the other world. He learns that a normal person can fight up to level monsters, and one generally needs to be around level to be chosen as the lowest ranked soldier in other worlds. Starting from level 1 can gain classes like swordsman, archer, etc., and when they reach level they are considered strong and can proceed with the second class advancement, and the third class advancement is possible at level. Due to the hellish conditions required to level up after the third class advancement, there are no reports of anyone seeing another go through the fourth class advancement. Many say that high-ranking monsters like Dragon and Bahamut would be in the fourth or fifth class. Alen thinks he will gather more information tomorrow at school. Alen looks outside the window and says, I miss Letta. Someone responds she'll be glad to hear that. Alen looks around and wonders who that is. A small angel stood on the window telling Alen that the heavens had sent me to help you get used to mana. The angel introduces herself as Erda and says it's very difficult to manage mana, which is why God sent me to support you so you can use mana with ease. Alen asks, how will you support me? And Ervis says that simply having me by your side activates the mana within you, since I am a higher being than you. Alen inquires as to why they are doing these for him, and the response that there was an angel who passionately requested to assist you. She stated that it was not fair to leave you when all you did was barely train. She requested an angel to go and help. Elen realizes it must be Letta and asks why she didn't come then, and Eartha tells her that the higher-ups were worried that a human and an angel would become too close, which is why they sent me. Ortha checks Elen's status and realizes that there is no need for an angel because he could defeat a low-ranked monster easily with just his fist. Further recalls and is enraged by Lita's deception and claiming that he is the only one who cannot use mana. Ether says it would take a year for you to learn Nana. If I am here, you have already lived with an angel for 1,000 years, but you didn't learn mana because there was no mana on Earth at that time. Elen asks her if she is going to just stay here. Elen asks what about when he is showering or on the toilet. You should at least leave me alone at that time. Ether says she doesn't care what a lowly human like you thinks, so don't be concerned. Elen is now going to his school and asks her if she is going to sit on his head all the time, and Earth says other lower beings can't see me, so don't worry. Elen also noticed that the government has dispatched soldiers everywhere to prepare for monsters that may appear in the future. Elen is almost invisible in the class because of the stealth skill. He thinks it's easy to eavesdrop on other conversations because of the skill, so he started to gather information from other people's conversations. Elen heard about a person nicknamed Impress. She was a student from his university who showed off her talents in the other world. Also gets to know about the dungeons with level restrictions, and he asks further what a dungeon is. Erda explains that it's a trap of monsters made by God. First he lures them in with something, and after a bunch of monsters gather in the dungeon, God blocks the exit so they can't get out. But unlike monsters, humans can freely enter and exit as they wish if they meet the level requirement. So why don't they keep the monsters in there forever? Elen inquires. Further responds the dungeons cease to exist after a certain amount of time, which is why humans must get rid of monsters within dungeons in due time. There are also monsters who are smart enough to escape the humans on their own. Elen was sitting in class, but while attending lectures he thought about what meaning a bachelor's degree would have. In the future, the ability to use magic will probably have the most meaning. Ithra says that the most efficient way to train mana is to hunt monsters. Elen complains that he doesn't want to do anything dangerous, and then Ada tells him that we are still in the beginning phase of the Great Cataclysm, so monsters are weak and you need to hunt many monsters while they are still weak so you can boost experience points and level to train your mana. Elen complains that he is still a level 2 and he can't use mana like others. Erda tells him that if he has a very good physique he will be able to beat monsters up to level very easily. Don't worry, Etha says we can try it out right now, and we see a swarm of insect monsters outside the campus. Erda says that the tutorial has ended and mankind has to survive by themselves. Everyone was too scared to fight monsters as they are level 1 and everyone started to panic and run. Elen is left alone in the room and looks around to find a weapon. He breaks a chair to make a weapon, and Etha explains that the monsters are not so different from animals, they are just a little bigger and stronger. Alec is surprised to see the quality of the weapon and praises Elen for his craftsmanship, but Eartha becomes enraged because of how Lita fooled everyone. About Elen says that even if I have stealth skills, people will notice me if I go and fight monsters, so Ertha suggests he wear a mask to hide his identity. Now we see that Elen beats a big mantis with only one kick, and he gets notification that he is leveled up to level and has obtained the record of a level big mantis. Leveling up is a system where the organisms linked to the Akashic record will be able to obtain new strength by claiming your opponent's life. You can take all their records and future potential. Elen notices that the mana in his body has increased slightly, and Eartha asks, "Did you finally understand the pleasure of violence?" Elen says yes, and I will hit you one day. Elen uses very fierce attacks and kills multiple monsters at once, gaining experience and leveling up. Now that the monsters have begun to attack, the mosquito strikes Cylind with its needle, but Elen's skin is so tough that the needle breaks. Eartha was quite surprised to see this, and she thinks Cylind has exceeded the limits of a human or the one Zealand, that monster reinforcements are on the way, and Elen begins ruthless killing attacks. Now that he has reached level, he suddenly strikes lightning at monsters. When Ellen notices a woman in a mask standing nearby, she gets excited and says wow, she is a mage. Further remarks that this girl has an insane amount of mana and wonders how she can use so many lightning attacks. Elen responds that perhaps she is leveling up like me. Every time I level up my stamina, my mana is restored. Elen kills the final monster and reaches level 7. People were astounded to see them fight, and a swarm of soldiers arrive, but they were also astounded to see the scene where hundreds of monster corpses lay. Erda tells Elen that if you dismember the monster corpse, you can obtain mana stones. They are usually located in the hardest part of the body. Elen began slaughtering, and he received notification that he had awakened a max level slaughtering skill. Finally, he was able to take out a mana stone, which Erda advised him to keep safe because it is a core material for all artifacts. When Elen notices that a large crowd has gathered and is filming him, he becomes agitated. A woman in a mask approaches him and asks him to assist with the slaughter. Elen asks her how much she will give him, and the woman suggests percent, which Elen accepts. We see many men swooning over the Empress, and Elen believes that girl is the Empress based on rumors she is truly powerful. Elen hears people talking about this guy. He killed the monster with his lightsaber, and the other person says no, it was a javelin. Erda says look at that, your hiding skill is so great, you could do anything in that mask and no one can even remember properly. The woman thanks Elen for the mana stones as Elen was about to leave. A soldier approached him and said, "We have something we wanted to ask you, so if you could cooperate," but the Empress struck him with lightning. Elen takes advantage of this opportunity to flee the chaos by changing his location slightly, activating his stealth skill and making himself invisible to others. People thought that he ran away faster than their eyes could see. He is just like Usain Bolt. Elen was very sad because no one noticed him because of his skill. Elen is sitting alone in the park and Eartha asks him what he is going to do. Elen responds that he is going to make defensive armor out of intuition, but because armor is difficult to make, he is thinking of making an e-guard. Ether suggests that dealing with monster byproducts is extremely difficult, so it's best to find a master and ask him. Elen says that the truest master of Earth is right in front of you. Eartha asks, "Do you know anything about mana craft?" Elen gets excited after hearing this and asks Letta to teach him this skill. Etha says she will teach him, but don't get too close to me, and Elen apologizes. Manacraft utilizes mana crystals, which are similar to magic stones, to create artifacts that can grant special powers to things like armor and weapons. It's a concept that evolved from blacksmithing. Elen catches Eartha again and asks her to teach him, but Eartha pushes him away and says she will need to speak with Letta when she returns to heaven, and Elen asks what you're going to say, to which Lita responds, "Take proper care of your mana." This says in order to start manacraft you first need to prepare materials and magic stones to create the armor or mana crystal with similar properties to the stone. Elen didn't understand properly, so Eartha gave an example of something like a dragon's heart. You place the magic stone next to you and synchronize as you create the gear, and grind the magic stone, then rub it all over the equipment. This is called the basic form, and it will elevate the gear's performance and stats. But above the basics there is meta crafting that can grant additional special abilities as well, but is applied form, which is very difficult. But Dylan asks her to tell him about it. That explains that if you consume the mana stones you may create the gear that you dream of. It could spout ice or fire, or whenever you block an attack it could have an effect to recover your stamina. Elen understands that it is important to strongly wish for the ability that you want to be granted. Now that he has made his equipment, he is able to successfully apply the basics of mana craft, and he gains the skill of mana craft. Now Elen tries to use the remaining mana stone to absorb and his mana inside it to perform advanced mana crafts, and Early is surprised to see Elen attempting these on his first try, and Elen wishes for the ability like a side, but he faces some difficulty, and Early assists her with a tiny bit of her own mana. Elen was able to successfully grant the ability to his knee guard, and his mana craft reaches level. He uses the ability Blade of Mantis, and it comes out exactly as he desired, and Eartha was surprised to see that Elen used the Blade of Mantis on his first try, and she tells him that even though I helped you with my mana, it's impressive that you succeeded in creating an artifact on your first try. Elen runs away because he broke the swings in the garden in the process of checking his equipment. On the news we see that Elen and Impress are being searched by the government. Elen was about to leave the house when his mother asked him to stay. Elen noticed that her mother has the ability to keep a close eye on all of her son's movements around the house. Elen thinks that his mother's surveillance is so extreme, and he tells his mom that he is only going to his school. Elen now goes to school and wonders what kind of skill her mother has and whether it is even useful, and Earth says it's like a penguin because a mother penguin can precisely detect its baby's crying sound. Earth informs Zealand that the government is looking for him to form a team of overpowered ability users, but Dylan says he has no interest in it and is not loyal enough to meet his family. Comes first, however. Elen says he wants to meet the Empress, and Earth asks him if he is interested in her. Elen says it's not like what you think, and then Earth asks, are you a sterile man, because doing a lot of physical training can decline someone's sexual activity. Elen says he has been with Letta for 1,000 years and she is a top-class beautiful angel. That is why I am not interested in any other girl. Elen says that even after he levels up, he still can't use mana, while the Empress is incredible at using mana, and Earth says it's not very incredible, because God sent them years to train in another world. Suddenly Eartha comes to a halt and declares, I sense the presence of a pack of monsters nearby, referring to a pack of or so wolves and a wild dog led by a level diamond wolf. Elen is surprised to hear that level monsters are approaching them, and he asks her why such high-level monsters are coming on the second day of the cataclysm, to which are the response that he also believes there is an error because an army of insect monsters invaded us just yesterday. Erda tells Elen that the Earth is not normal at the moment and she needs his help. Elen was surprised to hear this, but Eartha said, I'll explain on the way because we're in a hurry, as they ran towards the monsters. According to Eartha, the god sent all of humanity to another world to train to use mana, but he left the animals on Earth as they were because he thought they would be fine. No one even looked at them for years, but the flow of time was greatly distorted due to an unknown error, and the 10 years in the other world became 1,000 years on Earth. Elen remembers how he spent 1,000 years alone with Lita. Further claims that even though time was reset, animals that were only supposed to live for years survived for years, resulting in a dramatic change. To summarize, the monsters on Earth today are far more powerful than those in the other world. Or they informs Elen that until the restoration is done, we want you to be in charge of exterminating the monsters, and of course you will be rewarded for that. Ellen accepts the task and begins exterminating monsters. However, now that he has reached level, he notices monsters attacking humans. Ellen saves the people and exterminates the monsters. Ellen gets a notification that he can't get to level if he doesn't choose a class. All the records you have obtained will manifest as possibilities. People started to recognize Dylan as the same person who saved everyone at the university. They nicknamed him Sungain Bolt. Ellen is a little flustered when he thinks about his terrible nickname, but he kept Adam Monster Witch King monsters. A swarm of monsters attacked Dylan from all sides, but Dylan killed all but one monster, kidnapped a human. Urtha warns Dylan to beware of this monster's cunningness. Ellen throws his spirit to kill the monster, but now the monster attacks him, thinking that he has no weapons, but Seo Jun uses his punches. Ether looks at his fighting style and thinks the leader has raised an amazing monster. Suddenly a soldier comes behind Ellen and points his gun at him, and now we see that there are a lot of soldiers present. They're with their weapons, but they didn't come to attack Ellen but to hunt the monsters, and the chief lady was pretty shocked to see that Dylan killed all the monsters. Now Ellen starts butchering the monsters with his spear and thinks that he has to make a butchering knife. The army girl approaches Ellen about joining the army, but Ellen immediately declines. Now Ellen thinks there are too many monster corpses to take back alone, so he asks the military if they want to buy the monster corpses, and they agree. The military woman checks the corpse quality and finds it very good, as Ellen killed all of them in just one shot. And when she tells this to her captain, the captain tells her to do anything to bring Ellen back, even seduce her with your looks. Now Ellen comes and asks for the payment in cash, and he has 2 mana stones from the monster corpses. Alvin asks Early if he can eat them, and Eartha tells him that he will also become a monster if he does so. Ellen receives $1,000, and Eartha says that they gave you quite a lot. They must want to establish a connection with you. The military girl approaches and tries to charm Ellen with her looks, but Ellen, like any Sigma male, simply ignores her. She tries to stop him, but Dylan uses a flashlight to divert their attention, and everyone loses sight of him due to his stealth skills. Bertha praises him for his smart idea. Erda tells Ellen to choose his class now that he is out of reach of everyone, and Ellen checks the options. He is surprised to see so many options at once, and he asks her for assistance, says that you really accumulated already in just 2 days after logging into the Akarthic records, and he recommends being a lancer because he uses a spear, or a grappler because he also trained for close combat. Ellen remembers how he learned all of this from Lita after he got beaten up by her. Ether further says there is no need to think so much about it when you level up later and can obtain second and third subclasses. Ellen is taken aback by the news and says second class, not a class change, but I don't know anything about them on the internet. And Eartha says social media is a waste of your life. There is no way that they have the correct information. Erda asks Ellen why he chose the Lancer job, and Ellen says that the destruction power is heavily dependent on the weapon, so a good weapon would have a greater effect than if I were a grappler. But Dylan has taken aback when a new option appears, and he informs her that he has a new option called Blurred Lancer, and Early is also taken aback because this modification is a unique job, and it is getting it in his first class change, but Dylan is unaware of unique classes and asks what this is. Earthen explains that this is a class that was created specifically for you based on your previous experiences, so choose it regardless. It does have a higher requirement for leveling up than other classes, but it's still worth it. Ellen chooses the option Blurred Lancer, and a notification tells you that you have become a Blurred Lancer and your force of attack will be increased by when attacking in stealth mode. In addition, the power of spear arts will be increased by %, and finally the evolution requirements for stealth and spearmanship skills will be eased. Now, thanks to his accumulated experience, Elen has reached level, and all of his stats have skyrocketed. However, Elen suddenly realizes that the job he chose is a Blurred Lancer, and he assumed that the new option was a Blood Lancer. He asks her, what is this blurry Lancer? Elen's body suddenly began to glow, and he now has a super hot, beautiful body. And Erda told him that your body was strengthened because you earned your first class, you chose it, so you can't go back. Elen checks his status and sees that he still has the title of Forever Loner, and Bertha tells him you don't have any active skills because you don't know how to use mana, and seeing your growth rate, you might not learn it even before your second class change. Elen gets terrified and asks, isn't that dangerous? The Nerva says yes it is, but you are not a normal person but a very powerful one. So don't worry, and at the end you will get a super powerful skill as compensation for not getting skills before. Eartha now tells him to hurry up because more monsters have appeared, and because many other people have been commissioned by God to stop this monster, you only need to stop the monster in your area. Elen wonders if the Empress is also commissioned, and Eartha warns him that this is a quest from heaven, and if you do more work you will receive even bigger rewards. Elen arrives at a place and finds a very huge bear causing havoc there. The military was attempting to control the bear, but Elen was astounded to see that the massive bear was unaffected even after being hit by a missile, and Elen wonders what level this monster is at. Guys, what do you think? Will Elen be able to kill the bear alone? This is your Manhwa. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel, check out this awesome video.